Coming up on Theater Talk.
After a review like that, is the phone ringing off the hook? Is your agent fielding calls right and left for Hollywood offers and whatnot?
I actually don't have an agent or a manager. Never had an agent or a manager. I'm actually
Let's see how long
Let's see how long that lasts.
now as it stands. So, the phone is definitely ringing though.
Theater Talk is made possible in part by the CUNY TV Foundation. From New York City, this is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins.
And I'm Michael Riedel of the New York Post.
So, Michael, we have seen a wonderful play this week.
Absolutely. A terrific, terrific play by Horton Foote called The Old Friends at the Signature Theatre. Beautifully written, very nasty and vicious kind of thing. And it is... Welcome to Theater Talk, ladies. But it has also been given a tremendous production with 3 of the great, great stage actors in the city. We are joined tonight by Hallie Foote, Horton Foote's daughter. Welcome back to Theater Talk.
Thank you.
You were last here a few years ago with your father.
2008, I believe, the end.
I think it was probably one of the last interviews that he did.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. The legendary, brilliantly talented Lois Smith making her first appearance on Theater Talk. We've been trying to get you for years, Lois. And I must say, a dear, dear, dear friend of mine, the great Betty Buckley.
Thanks, Michael.
Who's giving a rip-roaring performance as the meanest woman on the New York stage, I think, at this point.
You're literally tearing up the seat.
You are literally smashing everything in sight. Hallie, give us a sense for people who haven't seen the play, what it's about, and where it fits in your father's canon of work when he began to work on this play.
Well, my father started working on this play in the mid-'60s, and the play actually takes place in 1965.
Yep.
Michael Wilson, who's our director, is great at researching things, and he grabbed, my father's papers are at SMU in Texas, and he got them to send us versions of this play, and it was originally called The Dispossessed. He made a lot of notes, and then he changed the name of it and called it The Old Friends.
Which is an ironic title because they don't treat each other like friends throughout much of the play.
That are all dispossessed.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But anyway, and then he didn't do too much with it, and because he was sort of not working much in the 60s and 70s in the theater. I mean, he was writing, but he wasn't getting gigs. He was kind of out of favor in New York. Just people they thought he was too realistic, a natural kind of style that he had, and so he moved to New Hampshire and continued to write, but he wasn't here having things produced. But anyway, this play, he kind of worked on it and called it The Old Friends, and then in the early 80s, he was back working, and he used to do, he worked with Herbert Berkoff a lot, who had a theater, has a theater down in the Village. And they did a kind of a workshop production of it, wasn't reviewed or anything. But, and then we had a reading of it that Jim Houghton at Signature Theatre put together, and Betty and I did the reading in 2002 or 2001. And my father saw it and went in and sort of rewrote the play.
Really?
Yeah, he did a massive edit on it, and that's the play we're sort of you're seeing today.
Now, Betty, you're from Texas, and this play is set in Texas. Are the people down in Texas really as vicious and nasty as these people in the play?
Well, I've said this in a couple of interviews and then immediately called the writer and said, please don't say that I said that. Because I don't want my... but I based my character on 3 girls, very wealthy girls that I grew up with at Arlington Heights High School in Fort Worth, Texas. I'm going to go ahead and say it now.
Tell us.
And, well, 2 especially, I think. I went to a high school that had, very wealthy, privileged children, but then there were a bunch of us that were from the west side of town. My dad was in the Air Force, so we weren't. And he was, we were really working class, and so I was kind of tormented by some of these wealthy ladies, and I watched them grow up through the years, and they were interesting girls. And then 2 other women that I've observed that are extremely wealthy, Texas socialites that I've seen through the years. So it's Gertrude's not one or the other, but she's kind of an amalgamation of those. I'm always of the theory that actors have certain themes in the chronology of their work. Why are those themes revisited? And And so I was asking myself, I meditate, follow a spiritual practice of meditation. I was saying, what is this about? What am I asked to learn here playing this girl Gertrude, this woman Gertrude? And the idea of my classmates came up and about healing this time from junior high and high school.
All these years, Betty, finally you're getting
that
around
I need to really understand what was going on and forgive these people once and for all.
I got to say though, you've nailed it, because
Thank you.
What's interesting about this play, Lois, is the theme of money, and how money is used to control people. And you. Betty has, Gertrude, your character, has the most money.
Rich.
Right.
Yes, she's rich.
But you're the older woman in the play, and you're kind of on the sidelines just watching these people do these things to each other.
And I also am dispossessed.
Yeah.
Well, you've been tricked out of your money by your children.
I gave it away to not very happy family. In my,
Hallie, was your father from money? I mean, it was maybe similar to Betty in a sense. Was he around moneyed people? Did he observe?
My father was sort of what he called, he said, we're an aristocrat, darling, but we're not, we don't have, we're kind of land poor. They had land, and they lost all their money in the Civil War. I mean, all his people. Mm-hmm. He had a great-great-grandfather that was Lieutenant Governor of Texas. He was the first Lieutenant Governor of Texas, Governor Horton. By the time my father came along, the money was long gone. Right. And his father was a haberdasher in Horton, Texas, and had, sold clothes and took care of his family. But, they lived through the Depression and didn't have a lot. And he was raised on those stories. And he had aunts that were sort of passionately committed to trying to solve the mystery of where the money went, what happened that was rightfully theirs. And I think he was a great listener, and so I think it all sort of went in his little computer, and he remembered all of it.
Because I remember when he was here, when we interviewed him, he said that he would just listen to people tell these stories.
I did listen a great deal, and I was always fascinated by older people and their stories.
You both knew him pretty well, right? You worked with him, yeah.
Yes.
Can you give us a sense of what he was like as a presence in a rehearsal room?
The best. One of my favorite moments every night at the beginning of our play, because Horton has had a history with the Signature Theatre, he has recorded the turn off your cell phone message.
I thought that was his voice.
And when every night, blessed Horton, with his beautiful voice, it's such a wonderful way to start the evening. I really treasure it. Well, Horton in the rehearsal room, I feel so privileged. I had this wonderful opportunity to work so closely with him in the trip to Bountiful in what was it, 2005? We did it together. Hallie was
well, that was a beautiful production.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I loved it. He's present every minute.
Mm-hmm. What was your relationship with him, Betty? You did...
I did the film Tender Mercies.
Of course,
and I
wonderful
was
movie.
Just so blessed to get to spend time with him on the set in Waxahachie, Texas, and Irvine, where we shot. And he is like an angel. His presence, he had this beautiful white hair and these beautiful eyebrows, kind of really fluffy eyebrows that I adored, And I would just, whenever there was a chance, I would sit next to him and get him to tell me stories, because he wrote so much for Playhouse 90 and all those great television drama days.
That were done live back then.
Yeah, and he wrote and wrote and wrote, and for all of my favorite actresses. And, when I was a kid in New York, and I was studying, and I, had set my eyes on the standard that was set by Geraldine Page and Kim Stanley, and these great ladies of the theater. I wanted to be able to have that skill set, and so I worked and worked and worked and studied, and then finally had this amazing opportunity with the film Tender Mercies with a Horton Foote screenplay. That man, wrote the play, he won the Oscar, and I just listened to his stories and everything he told me, and he gave me so much love and so much support and such kindness. Then after that, I was his benefit singer whenever people would give him an award, they would ask me to fly in and sing Amazing Grace for him. And
Oh, that was his song?
I considered myself part of the extended family for many, many years. And, you know, my association with Michael Wilson as well, but I loved Horton with all my heart.
It's interesting.
It's interesting.
I was just going to say, no, one second, I was just going to say, sorry. No, but, I mean, he wrote for, some of the greatest actresses of the 20th century.
Yeah.
And did he write with these actresses in mind ever? No, he heard these characters and then the actors came in.
He just wrote good parts for women.
He just
really, and men too. I mean, he really, and it doesn't, I don't know, they're fully fleshed out characters. So often you don't get that.
Yes.
Women are sort of, I don't know. It's just.
Yeah.
And the more you work, the deeper they are. It's really wonderful.
Their range of everything they experience as human beings, it's not narrow, it's not stereotypical, it's you know, it's so rich. Ellen Burstyn, we did a talk back after Trip to Bountiful, and Ellen Burstyn talked about, maybe you could illuminate that better than I, but she talked about the subconscious reality that he creates for the character to just swim through and learn, and you learn more and more and more and more about your characters, you know, the time you spend with it, with the play. It's amazing what his gift is.
Now,
sorry. May I say one thing?
Come on, Michael.
Ladies are ganging up on me.
Thank you. We have 1 minute left, but I was struck by the fact that here's this play that he began 50 years ago, also The Old Friends, and it's so much about the rich, you know, manipulating the poorer relatives and the disparity between the rich and poor. Do you see this as a more profound and resonant issue now, or do you just think, oh, well, it was the same?
I have a feeling it's forever.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, I must say, I was reminded the other day, I think when I was a child, I was told that the phrase from the Bible is, the love of money is the root of all evil. It's not money is the root of all evil, it's the love of money. And it seems to me that's what we're talking about here.
It certainly is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, certainly is.
Before we go, though, I have to ask you, since you guys are among the greatest actresses we have, can you just, each of you, tell me where it was in your childhood where you decided, this is the career I'm going to pursue? Do you remember, Hallie, when you thought, I'm going to be an actor?
I was a later person. I didn't really know that I wanted to act until I was in my 20s. And I had been through college. I was an English literature major. And so I think my father thought he dodged a bullet because he didn't really want us to get involved in the business. And I remember I was in a car with him, and I said, I think I want to study acting. And he just kind of looked like he was going to cry. He said, well, you better study with... So he got me a good acting teacher. He found a good acting teacher.
I think it's worked. And Lois, in your childhood,
when I was very small, my father put plays on in the church that we belonged to, wherever we lived. And clearly that was the beginning, because I loved him and I went with him when I could toddle, and I learned all the lines, and then I could step in if anybody needed. That was clearly a beginning. I was shy when I was little, and I think there was something liberating about being someone else, perhaps, and I wasn't shy. Yeah. That was nice, interesting.
Yeah. And Betty, your childhood in Texas?
Well, my aunt was a dance teacher. My mother had been a singer-dancer, and my mother took me to see my first piece of musical theater with the original Bob Fosse choreography in the show Pajama Game when I was 11 at our regional theater Casa Mañana. And I was smitten from that moment. I was like, oh my God, what's that? And I'd studied dance because of my aunt since I was 3. And had been performing all those years. But after that, I was just like, I'm going to New York City. And when I was 8, I saw or heard the Gershwin score, Rhapsody, you know, in blue, and I knew there was somewhere else, and I knew that I needed to be there.
I remember years ago you telling me you got off the bus in New York City and you went right to the audition for 1776, didn't you? And you got it.
Yeah, well, I was very fortunate. I had a wonderful agent, Roger Hess, who kept encouraging me. He signed me when I was a junior at TCU and said, you know, you've got to come, because my father was very opposed to my being in show business, and I would have never made it without all the encouragement. And so he said, give it 6 weeks. So I arrived, and he had this audition scheduled, and I got the show. So it was like, all right then.
Lois, you're the only one with a parent who wanted you to go into.
Oh no, he didn't want me to go into show business. This was part of his religious life.
Oh.
These were plays in churches.
They were religious plays that he was.
Well, yes, either they were maybe biblical sometimes, or that was, for him, there was never, I don't think he went to the movies, or almost never, and rarely to the theater. We lived in Kansas. There was not much theater to go to where we lived. So actually I began with a serious thread through, I mean, it was...
Fascinating.
Yeah, it was.
Well, listen, if you care about acting, you've got to go see The Old Friends, because you will see 3 phenomenal performances by Hallie Foote, Lois Smith, and Betty Buckley. Thank you very much for being our
In a
guests.
wonderful, not seen before play by Horton
Right,
Foote.
right. A Horton Foote premiere, The
Horton
Old
Foote.
Friends. I have a feeling this play is going to be done quite a bit, though, after the reviews that I read of the production today in the paper. Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
This time last year, Gaynor and I were planning our trip to New York. I had picked out all the plays that I wanted to see, and he'd sent for my tickets, and we had our reservations at the Waldo.
How long were you and Gaynor married?
No, I'm not going to tell you, Miss Mamie, because then you'll start guessing how old I am.
I know how old you are.
You knew Jack Johnson. I heard he had some kind of punch, and it was so fast, it could knock you out without the crowd even seeing it.
Fetch Clay, Make Man is the title of a remarkable new play about the unexpected friendship between Muhammad Ali and actor Stepin Fetchit.
Which I never knew anything about that, Susan. I never knew that Muhammad Ali and Stepin Fetchit
And it's
were
a true
pals.
story. They were pals. The play is written by Will Power, and it stars in an incandescent performance, so says the New York Times.
Wait, I've got the review right here.
Ray Fisher.
All right. Now, so Ray, I pick up the paper today, and Will and Ray, I pick up the paper today. You guys are on the front page, a rave review from Charles Isherwood for Fetch Clay, Make Man, and then I do the jump here to page 7. Where are we now? And I mean, listen, Charles is going gaga for you. As Ali, Mr. Fisher gives an incandescent performance that also makes room for the brooding moments of self-doubt. Charles goes on to say, Mr. Fisher's smooth, good looks really do seem to justify Ali's boast that he's as pretty as a girl. I think Charles Isherwood has a little crush on you, Mr. Fisher.
Well, I appreciate him for that. I appreciate him for that.
All right, Will, so give us the story of this play, how you came to write it, and tell us about this relationship between Muhammad Ali and Stepin Fetchit.
Yeah, you know, well, the idea for the play came when I saw a picture of them together, which really blew my mind, because when I was growing up, I learned that Stepin Fetchit was an opposite to Muhammad Ali.
And I've got to interject, a
Yeah.
lot of the young people I've talked to around here don't even know who Stepin Fetchit
Yeah.
is, white and black alike.
Yeah.
Who was Stepin Fetchit?
Stepin Fetchit was a character made famous in the late 20s and early 1930s in Hollywood that kind of epitomized the kind of lazy, shuffling stereotype of an African-American man.
Right.
Hurry up now. All right. Actually running now.
And so he was a comic actor.
And he was really Lincoln Perry.
Yeah, his real name was Lincoln Perry. Right. And so his idea was he was going to come into Hollywood with this character, become famous, and then add other characters. You know what I mean? That was going to be his entry point. But because of the times, because there was a lot of racism at that time, he was not allowed to grow out of that. And what he tried to do was, even within that stereotype, he tried to put humanity and kind of a trickster energy into it. But by the time the 50s and then the 60s rolled around, where this play takes place, he was considered like the traitor, the Uncle Tom, an embarrassment to both black and white Americans.
How did he hook up with Muhammad Ali?
So Muhammad Ali, as the story goes, sought out Stepin Fetchit because at this time in 1965, Stepin Fetchit, according to Ali, was the only one that was still alive who knew the great boxer Jack Johnson really well.
Oh,
and so Muhammad Ali wanted to know the secrets of Jack Johnson. In particular, he wanted to know this secret punch called the anchor punch that he supposedly had. So that's all true. At least that's what they say is true. So Stepin Fetchit came into the camp. A lot of people were like, oh my God, how can Stepin Fetchit and Muhammad Ali be friends? It makes no sense. And they were together for a period of time, in which time, according to Ali, he learned this punch from Stepin Fetchit, who learned it from Jack Johnson, and that was the punch that knocked out Sonny Liston in the rematch.
But the play, though, is really your imagination, right?
Yeah,
what goes on between these two.
Right, right.
Who represent different things.
That's right.
One is the old stereotype of the black man, and Ali is the new black man.
That's right, absolutely. And I've never been able to find out really if that really happened or not. We know that's the story they gave.
Yeah.
But for me, what was more fun, and of course this is theater, is let's imagine that was true, because it might have been.
Yeah.
And how did it play out? How did it manifest? And as you know, oftentimes in literature and in theater, the fool, like even in Shakespeare and King Lear, the fool oftentimes is very wise.
Yes.
And Stepin Fetchit, the real man behind the character Lincoln Perry, was a shrewd businessman, negotiated his own contracts, was a journalist for a while for the Chicago Defender.
That's right.
And so he was a complex guy. So I took it from the premise of maybe he did know this knowledge and what would happen when old and new come together.
Didn't Ali also play the fool in his own way?
Absolutely.
So that they were vibing together in
Vibing together.
No, they were vibing.
The lingo.
No, I love it. I love it. No, you're absolutely right. I feel like, at first glance, Muhammad Ali and Stepin Fetchit seem to be polar opposites. And when people hear about this play, they're really intrigued. It's like, how could they be friends? But if you look behind at the complexities of both of them, like you said, they both played the fool to their advantage. They both were tricksters.
Yeah.
And they both were into poetry and kind of trying to craft out an image.
Now, Ray, Mr. Incandescent over there, let me ask you, to portray Muhammad Ali, did you spend a good deal of time looking at interviews with him, watching boxing matches?
A lot of interviews. Luckily, he wasn't shy in front of the camera.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of footage, a lot of boxing footage as well, and reading about him, actually. And reading about the people that he chose to associate himself with. They could give you a much more candid view of Ali than Ali, doing his whole, I'm the greatest on the camera. What I was more interested in is finding out who this person is behind that.
Right.
Behind all the bravado.
I want to tell you, I one time saw Muhammad Ali. He passed me. I was at a rally for Harold Washington in Chicago way back, and he already was afflicted with Parkinson's. Yeah, and he walked into the room, and he was the most magnetic person I have ever seen. And you play him very well, but
Thank
he
you.
just was the most exciting. Just the energy, even sick, he gave out was so magnetic.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, there was a lot of training that's gone into this. My trainer is Michael Elijah-Day Jr., who runs an Aerospace High Performance Center, which is a boxing gym. Michael was a boxer in the mid-'80s. And he was at one time a #1 contender for the for the middleweight championship.
So you've been taking boxing lessons?
I've been taking boxing lessons, classes, and everything like that. Eating,
Did you have to bulk up a little bit?
I did have to bulk up. I was about.
Charles Isher would notice.
Well, I was back at during the original run of this at the McCarter. I was about 15 pounds lighter. Than I am now. Yes.
So now you've been working on this play for a number of years. You had a production at the McCarter Theatre, but this new production at the New York Theatre Workshop on 4th Street is directed by Des McAnaugh, the Tony-winning director of Jersey Boys. What did he bring to your production?
Well, I would love to get your feedback on that. I'll say for me, he brought, first of all, an amazing sense of dramaturgy. So
he helped you sculpt the play?
Absolutely, absolutely. Before he got involved, the story was there, but it was not clear how it was being told. And as you said, there's so many different issues in this play, so many sensitive issues. So how do you really tell the story and streamline it? So he really helped with that. He also helped with the rhythm of the piece from a textural point of view, the pacing of it. And because he comes from a music background as well, and also I come from music too, we were able to kind of have a conversation in shorthand.
You were a musical performer, a singer, and then also a playwright. But you certainly bring that sensibility into your work. So Des just enhanced it.
Absolutely. I came up in like hip hop culture and the spoken word. Even though I'm doing more, theater and playwriting now, that sense of rhythm, I think I utilize in the play. And then, of course, Des's staging, of coururse, is legendary.
But it's very interesting, this connection between writing and music, because I remember many interviews we've had over the years with Edward Albee. And Edward Albee always, when he's writing his plays, he thinks of them as quartets or a symphony, and it's the music form that is in his mind when he sits down to actually do the writing of the play. So.
Yeah, it's really similar. I feel like the words are notes. They're musical notes, and every word has a different sound.
Yeah.
When you put certain words together, they make certain energy. Sometimes this might be a chord that's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes it flows in harmony, and hopefully I'll lay it out for the actors
to
bring their amazing work in and then elevate it.
Well, there's definitely power in the words.
Yeah, we got to wrap it up, but I want to ask you, Ray, after a review like that, is the phone ringing off the hook? Is your agent fielding calls right and left for Hollywood offers and whatnot?
I actually don't have an agent or a manager. Never had an agent or a manager. I'm actually
let's see how long it
Let's see how long that lasts.
Now, as it stands. So, the phone is definitely ringing though.
By the time this airs, you'll have one.
So.
we want to
the next time we have him on, we'll have to go through layers of
That's right.
publicity, people. He'll be too busy. He'll be in his trailer filming.
Stay humble.
Call me whenever you want.
Our
number will stay the same.
Okay, Ray Fisher, terrific performance as Muhammad Ali.
Thank you, sir.
In Will Power's play Fetch, Clay, Make Man.
And I want to just quickly mention the rest of the cast, not the whole rest of the cast, but you've got Nikki M. James, right?
Oh, we love her. She was from Book of Mormon.
Richard Macer, and as Stepin Fetchit, a wonderful performance, K. Todd Freeman.
That's right. And also John Earl
Jelks as Brother
Yes,
Rashid.
as the evil.
The play is Fetch, Clay, Make Man at the New York Theatre Workshop by Will Power and starring Ray Fisher. Don't miss it. Congratulations on the success of the play.
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for being our guest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's your prediction for the fight? What round is he going to fall in, champ?
I cannot tell you the prediction, because if I say what's going to happen and you tell the world, well, they might not come.
You can sign up for viewer updates at theatertalk.org.
Or you can follow us on Twitter. Our thanks to the Friends of Theater Talk for their significant contribution to this production. Theater Talk is made possible in part by the Frederick Lowe Foundation, the Eleanor Naylor Dana Charitable Trust, the Corey and Bob Donnelly Charitable Fund, the Noel Coward Foundation, Carrie J. Fries, the Dorothy Strelson Foundation, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, and the New York State Council on the Arts, a state agency.
We welcome your questions or comments for Theater Talk. Thank you and good night.